This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I'm your guest, Andrew.
And this is FANDOM Fridays, presented by the CHRILLCAST. We usually talk about either our currently playing, our latest pickups, or some recommendations. Well, this week we're just going to be doing some recommendations. So we're going to start with Will's recommendation.
All right, so I've recently been getting into the Witcher games. I actually beat The Witcher 2 finally. And I decided to actually look at the source material for those games, so looking over those books, and I'm enjoying them a lot so far. So Sword of Destiny, you see the picture here, is the second book in the series. What I can gather is actually it's a collection of short stories in each book. I might be wrong on this, but that at least the second book is a collection of short stories, and it's essentially the same girl from the games, and it's wonderful seeing him go through the adventures. And if you like the games, you'll definitely like the books because they're very similar. It's just a different medium, and I'm really much enjoying it. So if you're into political intrigue, Polish mythology, and or the Witcher games, which include those two things, you'll definitely like the books.
Very cool, Will. Definitely a good read since that's what the Netflix series is based upon. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
What about you, Andrew? What you got?
So, my recommendation is the TV series, The Expanse. So, this is based off of books. I haven't gotten around to reading those yet, but the TV series drew me in pretty well because, Star Wars, Star Trek, they're both really interesting stories, and if you're looking for that fix in the sci-fi space genre, The Expanse is pretty cool. They go for a more realistic take on everything, something that, if you're being realistic, you could see us in like the next 50 years or so if you wanted to, as far as the technology goes, like just how people interact on spaceships and the fact that gravity's still a thing and that if you get hurt in space you're pretty much screwed unless you have gravity. Just little things that make it feel very grounded and yet allow you to dream and imagine the what ifs. So I'm a big fan of it. I look forward to reading the books in the near future. I just have to find the time. But the important thing is that Amazon did pick this up from Sci-Fi instead of letting it die, and Jeff Bezos is a huge fan of the book series, so he's making sure that this thing is well funded, and I can't imagine it turning bad at that rate because he's not going to let it. And they're coming out with a new season real soon. I forget what the release date is, but the new season's coming.
Very cool. I can say that I was just looking through some of that information you were just talking about, the novels. Looks like there's 8 novels currently in that series, so like the TV show has an unlimited amount of material to go through. And then he's working on a 9th one that's going to come out next year. So if you are into a series that is continuous and moving forward, this looks like the series for you if you're into sci-fi. So I have a book series that's near and dear to my heart. Picked it up in Florida like 15 years ago and read the second book on accident instead of the first book. But it's the Bronze Knight Trilogy by John Marco. I actually just finished reading this series like 2 years ago because I had read the first one and I had read the second one, I've read the second one and the third one, but I never knew what the backstory was behind the series, so I didn't read the first one. So like, I want to say 2017, my brother got me the first book in the series, which is called The Eyes of God. Wow, none of these are big pictures. But I finally read it and I was like, wow, this really set up the series well. And it was originally supposed to be a trilogy, but then he decided, I'm just going to write a 4th book. Like, what? So he's got a 4th book in the trilogy for the Bronze Knight. It's called The Forever Knight. It's like kind of a side story at the end of the series. It's not really expanding it that much. It's really just covering one character. It just happens to be the main character from the series. Okay. But the premise is there's like all these misfits in the world, and they can gain these special powers by going. It's almost like medieval magic and medieval sorcery and like knights and stuff meets like a Harry Potter Wizard Academy, but it's like medieval, so it's not modern day with the Muggles and stuff. So, and there's no like stigma around the magic other than pretty much only disabled people have magic in this. It's hard to explain. It's really. Let me just pull up the Goodreads has a good one here. That's the Forever Knight, so I'll go back to the first one. I'll give you guys the summary of the first book, and then we'll just call it a day. Let's see. Here it is. So the backdrop of the story is, so there's like this king. He wasn't originally a bad king, but he got obsessed with the idea of bringing a library into the kingdom so his population would be knowledgeable. And then he found out about these like ancient writings that talked of this place beyond the sand in the kingdom, which is like in the kingdom it's very, very, very far away. So he gets obsessive about going there after he finds out that his spouse has a problem that can only be solved by going there. I'm not going to give any spoilers away beyond that, but throughout his journey, he sends his BFF, the Bronze Knight, who I'm not going to name, and he goes. And in the aftermath of him going, a lot of events unfold based upon that. I really feel like this series would do super well on the big screen, whether it be an HBO series or if it were to be made into a movie, which would kind of suck because they have to cut a lot of content out of it. But I really recommend this to anybody who likes medieval fantasy with some magic, because it's really well written. There's a lot of politics in it that's fleshed out pretty well. A lot of battles that are kind of more realistic other than the magic. And the characters are also well written and fleshed out. And I don't think this author, John Marco, gets a lot of coverage by very many people. As you can see,
yeah, it's the first time I've heard of this author. So
he's only got like 1,500 ratings for a book that came out years ago, versus like a Harry Potter would probably have millions of ratings. But he's a really good writer. I probably will end up picking up his fourth book in this series just because I really enjoyed the first three. And now that I'm actually reading again, because I've been reading through Hardwired, maybe I'll actually finish a book again. But yeah, if you guys are looking for like a medieval with some magic, some Harry Potter Academy, but way better written type books, this is the book for you. And start with Eyes of God, unlike me. But that's all I've got for that. Is there anything else you guys wanted to discuss before we finish this weekly podcast?
I'm good on my side.
Yeah, I'm good.
I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you for coming on the podcast, Andrew. We always appreciate having guests. They bring a different take on a lot of our plans, and definitely the Back to the Future episode will be very fun for anybody listening.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a good time.
If we get some positive reviews from you being on here, maybe you can come back.
Otherwise, you're dead to us.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can't make any promises. But let's have low expectations so they can be exceeded.
There you go. As always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I was your guest, Andrew.
And we will see you
on next CHRILLCAST.